The morning after the protest felt strangely quiet. The crowd had gone home. The signs were no longer in the air, but the message they carried was still alive. Across town, in his small kitchen, Mr. Thomas sat by the window. Sunlight touched the old wooden table. His cardboard box still rested near the door, untouched. For the first time in 20 years, he did not have to wake up before sunrise. He did not have to unlock school doors. He did not have to push his cleaning cart down the long hallways. The silence felt heavy. He held his coffee cup with both hands, thinking, had he done the right thing? Was kindness worth losing everything familiar? Before he could answer his own thoughts, there was a knock on the door. He looked up, surprised. He was not expecting anyone. When he opened the door, a tall man in a simple blue jacket stood there. He looked friendly, but serious. "Mr. Thomas," the man said with a small smile. "My name is David Miller. I run the Riverside Community Center." Mr. Thomas nodded politely. "I think we spoke on the phone," he replied. "Yes," David said, "but I wanted to speak to you face to face." They sat at the kitchen table, 2 cups of fresh coffee between them. "I watched the news," David began, "and I read the stories online." Mr. Thomas looked down slightly. "I did not expect any of that," he said softly. David leaned forward. "That is exactly why I am here." Mr. Thomas looked confused. "At the community center," David continued, "we work with children who struggle. Some come from difficult homes. Some are bullied. Some feel lost." He paused for a moment. "We have programs," he said, "but what we do not have is someone like you." Mr. Thomas blinked slowly. "Someone like me?" he asked quietly. "Yes," David replied. "Someone who sees children when they feel invisible." The words filled the small kitchen. "I am not a teacher," Mr. Thomas said honestly. "I only clean floors." David shook his head gently. "You do much more than that." He placed a folder on the table and opened it. "I want to offer you a position," he said. "Director of Student Support Programs." Mr. Thomas stared at him, unsure if he heard correctly. "The job would be simple," David explained. "You would mentor students. You would listen to them. You would guide them. You would be there when they need someone." Mr. Thomas felt his throat tighten. He had never imagined something like this. "And the salary," David added calmly, "it is higher than what you were earning before." The room became very still. Outside, a bird landed on the window ledge. For a moment, even the world seemed to pause. "I only helped one girl," Mr. Thomas said slowly. David smiled. "And that one act showed us who you really are." At the same time, across town, the school board was holding an emergency meeting. The protest, the news coverage, the thousands of petition signatures. It was too much to ignore. Parents filled the meeting room seats. Students stood quietly at the back. Lily sat in the front row, her hands folded tightly together. After hours of discussion, the board made a decision. They would offer Mr. Thomas his job back. The principal herself volunteered to deliver the message. Later that afternoon, as Mr. Thomas and David finished their conversation, another knock came at the door. When Mr. Thomas opened it, he saw the principal standing there. Her face looked different than before, less firm, more thoughtful. "Mr. Thomas," she began, "we would like to discuss reinstating your position." Behind her, a school board member nodded in agreement. "The community has spoken," she added, "and perhaps we were too quick with our decision." Mr. Thomas listened quietly. He looked from the principal to David, then back again. For 20 years, the school had been his second home. Every hallway held a memory. Every classroom carried a story. But something had changed. He was no longer just a janitor. He was a symbol of something bigger. He thought about Lily, about the students who stood outside with signs, about the children at the community center who still needed someone to sit beside them. He took a slow breath. "I am grateful," he said kindly, "but I have accepted another offer." The principal looked surprised. "You have?" she asked. "Yes," he replied gently. "I want to help children in a different way now." There was no anger in his voice, no bitterness, only calm strength. As the principal walked away, she understood something important. This was no longer about rules. It was about values. Inside the kitchen, David extended his hand. "Welcome to the Riverside Community Center," he said with a proud smile. Mr. Thomas shook his hand. For the first time since losing his job, the future did not look uncertain. It looked full of purpose. Sometimes losing one door opens another, and sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a beginning. By the next morning, the story was no longer just a school story. It had escaped the walls of Lincoln Middle School. It was moving through phones, through homes, through the entire town. Parents were reading it at the breakfast table. Teenagers were sharing it before first period. Even people who did not have children at the school were talking about it. The short video that one student posted had spread faster than anyone expected. It showed Lily speaking with shaking hands but strong eyes. It showed other students telling their small stories about Mr. Thomas. It showed one simple message at the end. He helped when no one else did. By lunchtime, the video had thousands of views. By evening, it had tens of thousands. At a small coffee shop near the school, two parents sat with their phones in their hands. "I cannot believe they fired him," one mother said. "He helped my daughter last year when she fell in the hallway." A man at the next table leaned over. "He helped my son find his lost wallet," he said. "He stayed after school to search for it." Stories began to rise like waves, each one small, but together they became powerful. At the local grocery store, people spoke about it while waiting in line. At the barber shop, customers argued about rules and kindness. At the park, parents discussed what kind of message this sends to children. The town was awake. By afternoon, a group of high school students created an online petition. The title was simple: "Bring back Mr. Thomas." They did not use big words. They did not attack the school. They simply wrote the truth. He was fired for helping a bullied student. We believe kindness should not be punished. Signatures started coming in slowly at first, then faster, then so fast that the number kept jumping every minute. 100 signatures, 500, 1,000. By the end of the day, there were over 5,000 names on the list. Former students who had moved away shared the link. One wrote, "He gave me advice when I thought about quitting school." Another wrote, "He told me I was stronger than I believed." The comments were filled with gratitude, with respect, with love. Meanwhile, inside the school building, the staff felt the pressure growing. Teachers checked their phones between classes. The principal received emails every hour. The school board members began getting calls from concerned parents. Local news reporters heard about the story. One reporter drove to the school and stood outside the gate with a camera crew. "This is Channel 7 News," she said into the camera. "Today, we bring you a story about a janitor who lost his job after helping a bullied student." The words sounded serious. The camera showed the school building behind her. By evening, the story was on television. People sitting in their living rooms watched quietly. In a small house across town, Mr. Thomas sat at his kitchen table, a cup of cold tea in front of him, his small cardboard box resting near the wall. He had not turned on the television all day. He did not know how big the story had become. He only knew that he missed the school halls. He missed the early morning silence before students arrived. He missed feeling useful. When his phone began to ring, he looked surprised. He rarely received calls. It was an unknown number. He answered slowly. "Mr. Thomas," a voice said warmly. "My name is David. I own the community center downtown." Mr. Thomas listened carefully. "I saw the news," the man continued. "I think what you did was right." Mr. Thomas stayed quiet. "In fact," David added, "I believe someone like you is exactly what this town needs." Back at the school, the pressure continued to build. The petition had now reached 10,000 signatures. Parents planned to attend the next school board meeting. Students were organizing a peaceful gathering outside the school gates. Lily stood among them the next day after school, holding a small handmade sign. It read, "Kindness matters." She no longer felt small. She no longer felt invisible. She felt part of something bigger. Cars passing by slowed down. Some drivers honked in support. Some rolled down their windows and clapped. The energy in the air was strong, not angry, but determined. The town was not fighting for a job. They were fighting for a message that said helping a child should never be wrong, a message that said rules should protect people, not silence kindness. Inside the school offices, meetings were happening behind closed doors. Voices were serious. Faces were tense. The school board knew they could not ignore this anymore. And for the first time since losing his job, the decision did not feel final. Because when a whole town stands up for one good man, the story is far from over. That night, Lily could not sleep. Her room was dark. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. Cars passed outside her window, but her mind was louder than everything else. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same image: Mr. Thomas walking out of the school with a small box in his hands, his shoulders straight, his smile calm, even though he had just lost his job. She turned in her bed and pulled the blanket closer. Her chest felt heavy. "This is my fault," she whispered to herself. If she had not cried on the stairs, if she had not needed help, if she had just stayed quiet, maybe he would still have his job. Tears rolled down her face again. But this time they were not only tears of sadness. They were tears of guilt. The next morning, she walked into school with a different feeling. The building looked the same. The lockers were the same. The noise was the same. But something felt empty. When she passed the hallway where Mr. Thomas usually worked, the floor looked clean as always, but the space felt cold. Students were whispering. Some had heard what happened. Some did not know the full story. "He broke the rules," one student said. "He should not have left his area," another replied. Lily felt her hands tighten around her backpack straps. They did not know the truth. They did not know why he left. In her first class, the teacher began the lesson like any other day. But Lily could not focus. Her heart was beating fast. Her thoughts were running. She looked around the classroom, at the same faces that laughed yesterday, at the same students who walked past her on the stairs, and something inside her changed. She realized that staying silent would not fix anything. When the teacher asked if anyone had questions, Lily slowly raised her hand. Her hand felt heavy in the air. "Yes, Lily," the teacher said. Her voice shook at first, but she forced herself to speak clearly. "I want to talk about what happened yesterday," she said. The classroom became quiet. Even the students in the back stopped whispering. "Mr. Thomas did not break the rules for no reason," she continued. "He helped me." A few students shifted in their seats. Some looked surprised. "I was sitting on the stairs," she said. "I was crying because some students were making fun of me." Her cheeks turned red, but she did not stop. "He did not ignore me," she said. "He did not walk away. He sat with me and made sure I was okay." The silence in the room felt deep. "He told me I matter," she added softly, "and no one has ever said that to me here before." The teacher looked at her carefully. There was something different in Lily's voice that day. It was not weak. It was brave. "Because of him," Lily said, "I did not feel alone anymore." For a moment, no one spoke. Then something unexpected happened. A boy in the middle row slowly raised his hand. "Mr. Thomas helped me too," he said. "Last year when my parents were fighting, I used to stay late after school. He would talk to me and make sure I got home safe." Another girl spoke up. "When I forgot my lunch, he gave me money from his own pocket," she said quietly. One by one, students began sharing small stories. Stories that most people never noticed. Stories about quiet acts of kindness. The teacher listened carefully. Her eyes looked thoughtful. By lunchtime, the story had spread beyond that classroom. Students were talking about it in the cafeteria, in the hallways, even on social media. One student recorded a short video explaining what really happened. The video was simple, no music, no special effects, just the truth. He lost his job for helping a student who was being bullied. The video said, within hours, the video was shared again and again. Parents began to see it. Former students saw it too. Comments started to appear. "That man helped my son years ago." One parent wrote, "He deserves respect, not punishment." Another commented, "Lily watched the numbers grow on the screen. Shares, likes, messages." She felt nervous, but she also felt proud. For the first time since coming to this school, she was not hiding. She was not sitting alone on the stairs. She was standing up, and she was not alone anymore, because sometimes it only takes one quiet voice to start something powerful. And sometimes, when the truth is spoken out loud, it becomes stronger than any rule. The call came just before lunch. "Mr. Thomas, please report to the principal's office immediately," the voice said through the speaker. The hallway became quiet for a moment. A few students looked up. Some whispered to each other. Mr. Thomas stood still beside his cleaning cart. His hands were holding a mop. Water slowly dripped onto the floor. He knew why he was being called, and yet he hoped maybe he was wrong. He parked his cart carefully against the wall. He removed his gloves and folded them neatly. He always liked to leave things in order, even when his heart felt heavy. As he walked down the long hallway, memories followed him. 20 years of early mornings, 20 years of polishing floors before students arrived, 20 years of fixing broken chairs and wiping away careless marks from lockers. He remembered students who had grown up and left the school. Some had become doctors. Some had become teachers. Some had returned years later just to say thank you. But today felt different. When he reached the office door, he paused for a second. He took a deep breath. Then he knocked softly. "Come in," the principal said. The office was quiet and bright. Sunlight came through the large window behind her desk. Awards and certificates covered the wall. The principal sat straight in her chair. Her face was serious. There was no smile. "Please sit down, Mr. Thomas," she said calmly. He sat in the chair across from her desk. His back was straight. His hands rested on his knees. "We received a report this morning," she began. "It says you left your assigned work area during class hours." Her voice was clear and firm, like she had already made up her mind. Mr. Thomas nodded slowly. "Yes, I did," he replied honestly. He could have made excuses. He could have said he was checking something in another hallway, but he did not lie. "There was a student in trouble," he explained. "She was being bullied and she was crying on the stairs." The principal's expression did not change. "You know the school rules," she said. "Your job is maintenance, not student supervision." Mr. Thomas felt a quiet sadness in his chest. "I understand the rules," he said gently. But she needed help. The room felt heavy. The ticking clock on the wall sounded louder than usual. "The teacher who saw you reported that you were sitting with the student," the principal continued. "You were away from your duties for over 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Such a small amount of time. Yet now it felt very big. I was making sure she was safe," he said softly. "I walked her to the counselor." The principal folded her hands on the desk. "We cannot have staff breaking policy," she said. "If we allow one person to ignore the rules, others may follow." Mr. Thomas looked down at the floor for a moment. He thought about Lily sitting on the cold stairs. He thought about her shaking hands. Then he looked back up. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "rules do not see tears." The principal's eyes narrowed slightly, but her voice stayed calm. "This is not personal," she said. "But we must think about the system." The system, a word that sounded strong and organized. But right now it felt cold. After a long pause, she reached for a paper on her desk. "I am sorry, Mr. Thomas," she said. "But we are terminating your employment effective today." The words felt heavy in the air. Terminating your employment. 20 years ended in one sentence. Mr. Thomas did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He simply nodded. "I understand," he said. He stood up slowly. The chair made a small sound as it moved back. "You may collect your personal belongings from your locker," the principal added. "Security will escort you out." Security, another word that felt too big for what had happened. When he stepped outside the office, the hallway felt longer than before. A security guard walked beside him. Students stared quietly. Some of them looked confused. Some looked worried. At his locker in the staff room, he placed his few personal items into a small cardboard box. A framed photo of his late wife. A coffee mug that said "Best Grandpa." An old radio he used during early mornings. He closed the locker door gently, like he was saying goodbye to an old friend. As he walked toward the main entrance, he saw Lily standing near the counselor's office. Their eyes met for a brief second. She looked afraid, like she knew this was because of her. He gave her a small smile, a smile that said it was not her fault. Then the school doors opened. Cold air touched his face. He stepped outside. The doors closed behind him with a soft but final sound. Inside, classes continued. The bell rang. Students moved from one room to another. But something invisible had shifted that day. Because sometimes, when a good person is punished for kindness, the story does not end there. Sometimes that is where the real story begins. Lily was not the kind of girl who liked attention. She liked quiet corners. She liked books more than noise. She liked to sit near windows and watch the sky. But on her third day at Lincoln Middle School, all eyes were on her. Her family had moved to the town only 2 weeks before. New house, new streets, new faces. Everything felt strange. Even the air felt different. That morning, she stood in front of the school gate and held her backpack tightly. Students were walking in groups, laughing loudly. They looked like they had known each other forever. She felt like she did not belong there. She told herself to be brave. She told herself it was just another school. But deep inside, she was scared. In her first class, she tried to answer a question. Her voice was soft. She spoke slowly because she did not want to make a mistake. A boy in the back of the class copied the way she talked. Some students laughed. Her cheeks turned red. The teacher told everyone to be quiet, but the damage was already done. During lunch, she looked for an empty table. All the seats were taken, or at least that is what it felt like. She finally sat at the corner of a long table. She opened her lunchbox, but before she could take a bite, 2 older girls walked over. "Are you sitting here?" one of them asked in a sharp voice. Lily looked around. There was space, but she understood what they meant. "Yes," she said softly. The girls looked at each other and laughed. One of them picked up Lily's water bottle and placed it on another table. "This seat is saved," she said, even though it was not. Lily felt her hands shake. She quickly packed her lunch and walked away. Her stomach was hungry, but her heart felt worse. She went to the back staircase because it was usually empty. It was quiet there. No loud voices, no laughing. She sat down on the cold steps and tried to hold her tears. She told herself not to cry, but sometimes tears do not listen. That was when 2 boys from her class walked by. They saw her sitting alone. One of them whispered something cruel about her clothes. The other pushed one of her books down the stairs. The sound of the book hitting each step felt louder than it should have been. Felt like the sound was inside her heart. When they left, she did not move right away. She just stared at the floor. She began to believe maybe they were right. Maybe she was strange. Maybe she did not fit in anywhere. She thought about asking her parents if they could move back. But she knew that was not possible. Her father had worked hard to get this new job. Her mother always said this town would bring new chances. But right now it only brought pain. As she reached for her fallen book, she noticed a pair of worn-out black shoes step into her view. She looked up slowly. It was the school janitor, Mr. Thomas. Most students never paid attention to him. They walked past him like he was part of the wall. But today he stopped. He did not ask many questions. He did not speak in a loud voice. He simply picked up her book and handed it to her like it was something very important. His eyes were kind, not curious, not judging, just kind. For a second, Lily felt embarrassed. She did not want anyone to see her crying. But Mr. Thomas did not make her feel weak. He sat on the step beside her like it was the most normal thing in the world. "First weeks are the hardest," he said gently. She looked at him with surprise. "How do you know?" she asked. He smiled softly. "Because I was new once too," he said. It was such a simple answer, but it made her feel less alone. She told him about the teasing, about the laughing, about how she tried to be brave but felt small inside. Mr. Thomas listened like her words mattered, like her feelings were real. When she finished, he said something she did not expect. "Different is not bad," he said. "Different is special." No one had ever said that to her before. For the first time that day, she felt a tiny light inside her chest, a small feeling of hope. But while they were sitting there, someone at the end of the hallway was watching. A teacher noticed that Mr. Thomas was away from his cleaning cart. The teacher frowned and walked away quickly. Lily did not know that this small moment of kindness would soon cause big trouble. She did not know that by the end of the day, the man sitting beside her would lose his job. All she knew was that for the first time since coming to this new school, someone had seen her, someone had cared, and sometimes one person caring is enough to change everything. It was a normal school morning, but before the sun went down, one small act of kindness would change a man's life forever. The hallways of Lincoln Middle School were loud as always. Lockers were opening and closing. Students were laughing. Some were running because they were late for class. In the middle of all this noise, Mr. Thomas pushed his cleaning cart slowly down the hallway. He had worked at the school for more than 20 years. He knew every corner of the building. He knew which locker door made a strange sound. He knew which classroom window did not close properly. Most students did not really see him. To them, he was just the janitor, the quiet man who cleaned the floors and emptied the trash. But Mr. Thomas saw everything. He saw who came to school with a big smile. He saw who walked in with heavy steps and sad eyes. That morning felt a little different. Maybe it was just a feeling in his heart. He could not explain it. As he turned near the back staircase, he heard something soft. It was not the loud sound of students talking. It was quieter. It sounded like someone trying not to cry. He stopped pushing his cart. He listened carefully. There, sitting on the cold stairs, was a young girl. Her name was Lily, but he did not know that yet. Her head was down. Her shoulders were shaking. Her hands were holding her books tightly against her chest. Two older students walked past her and laughed. One of them whispered something mean. The other kicked one of her books down the stairs. Mr. Thomas felt a pain in his chest. He had seen this look before, the look of a child who feels alone. For a moment, he stood still. He remembered the school rules very clearly. Janitors were not allowed to leave their assigned areas during class time. They were not supposed to get involved in student problems. If something happened, they were told to report it and move on. He looked at his cart. He looked at the long hallway that still needed cleaning. Then he looked back at the girl. She was now trying to pick up her book, but her hands were shaking too much. Tears were falling on the pages. Mr. Thomas had two choices. He could walk away and pretend he did not see anything, or he could step forward and help her. If he walked away, no one would blame him. He would keep his job safe. His life would stay the same. But if he helped her, he might get into trouble. He took a deep breath. Then he left his cart where it was and slowly walked toward her. He did not speak loudly. He did not ask too many questions. He simply bent down, picked up the fallen book, and handed it to her. "It is going to be okay," he said softly. The girl looked up at him with red eyes. She looked surprised that someone had stopped. "Why are they so mean?" she whispered. Mr. Thomas sat down on the stairs beside her. He did not care that the floor was cold. He did not care that someone might see him. Sometimes people hurt others because they are hurting inside, he said gently. But that does not mean you deserve it. She told him she was new at the school. Her family had just moved to the town. She had no friends yet. That morning, some students made fun of her clothes and her accent. She tried to be brave, but it became too much. Mr. Thomas listened carefully. He did not rush her. He did not look at his watch. When she finished speaking, he said something simple. "You matter." Those two words felt small, but to her they felt big. He helped her stand up. He offered to walk her to the school counselor so she would not feel alone. She nodded slowly. As they walked down the hallway together, a teacher saw them. The teacher looked confused. Why was the janitor away from his work area during class time? Whispers began to move quietly through the staff room. After making sure Lily was safe with the counselor, Mr. Thomas returned to his cart. He continued cleaning like nothing had happened, but inside he felt worried. Around lunchtime, a message came through the school speaker. "Mr. Thomas, please report to the principal's office." His heart beat faster. He wiped his hands on his uniform and walked slowly down the hall. Students passed him without knowing what was happening. Inside the office, the principal sat behind a large desk. Her face looked serious. "We received a report that you left your assigned area during class time," she said. Mr. Thomas explained everything calmly. He told her about the girl on the stairs. He said he only wanted to make sure she was safe. The principal listened, but her face did not change. "You know the rules," she said firmly. "You were not allowed to get involved." There was silence in the room. By the end of the day, Mr. Thomas walked out of the school carrying a small box with his personal items. His name badge was no longer on his shirt. Students looked at him with confusion. They did not understand. As the school doors closed behind him, he felt sadness. But deep inside, he also felt